It's no surprise that characters that shoot good-feeling guns are some of the most popular characters in shooters. After all, if people just wanted to move around, they'd play other genres like platformers. Because of this, ensuring guns feel impactful and fun is vital for making compelling characters in shooters. Overwatch has a wide variety of guns to choose from, but one of the most simple and best feeling is the Gunslinger cowboy himself, Cassidy. By comparison, Cassidy's kit is lackluster and very simple when compared to his gun. Due to how power budget distribution works, it makes sense that his abilities would be weak because of how strong his gun is. However, one ability in particular has held the ire of much of the player base, including his own, to a similar level as his gun. So, let's try to figure out how to keep this cowboy's aim as sharp as possible while reducing the frustration people have when in a standoff against him. So first, before we go on and evaluate how well they did when designing Cassidy's kit, let's identify what core themes Cassidy has been built around. Fortunately, Cassidy wears his themes on his sleeve because they are incredibly obvious. Cassidy has been designed around the cowboy gunslinger theme since the very inception of his character. The themes of cowboy, gunslinger, outlaw, etc. have all become intertwined with each other due to lots of pieces of Western media, some of which include Red Dead Redemption, No Country for Old Men, and The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly. However, as time has gone on, his identity has also centered on something unique to Overwatch. He is the anti-dive hit scan. Over the years, Cassidy has received a number of changes that have made him more or less effective as the anti-dive hit scan, but it always comes around to trying to make him strong against dive and weaker against poke. Unfortunately, building a character around being a counter to others typically makes them unfun to play into and not that fun to play as. But before going any deeper into how fun he actually is, let's talk about his kit and how well he executes on the fantasies that we've mentioned so far. His gun, also known as the Peacekeeper, has both a primary and secondary fire function to it. Cassidy's gun is insanely strong when played up close, only losing to higher ranged characters due to his fall-off. If anyone happens to be playing in his 25-meter range, there's a good chance that you as a Cass can just 2-tap them in the head and immediately send them back to the spawn room. If they get even closer than that, then just press your right click to fan the hammer and try to send them back to the spawn room even faster. However, due to the insane spread that Fan the Hammer has, it really is best when used on large targets up close such as tanks or barriers. Compared to plenty of other characters, he may lose out in the range department, but that doesn't matter when his burst is so effective in the most common range played in the game. Because most duels tend to happen at around the 20-meter range, Cassidy is perfectly effective there and is more than capable of two-shotting you in the head within a second, giving you very little time to respond to him. However, it does make sense that a gunslinging cowboy would be great in duels, especially when he can land shots. Another thing that makes sense for a cowboy to do is to roll while in combat. The reloading part may not make sense, but it does provide him with a versatile ability to either kite back or chase forward. However, because it really doesn't go that far and it isn't as quick as some other movement abilities, he really isn't able to flank with this ability. It just allows him to get out of danger while with the rest of his team. Much like his gun, his roll is also great when used during a duel because of the auto reload, damage reduction, and how short of a cooldown it's on. Staying in theme with dueling abilities, his next ability is Flashbang, and this is where I start to have a problem with this kit. The current iteration of Flashbang, at least as of the time of recording, is a highly damaging AoE hinder. The high burst damage makes it mostly effective against flankers because of their lower health bars, while the high CC time makes it potent when used against tanks. This one ability is the main reason why Cassidy is picked into dive. It's not because he has a higher health bar compared to other DPS and he has good burst up close, it is because of Hinder. And at least in my opinion, Hinder, for one, doesn't even fit his theme of a cowboy gunslinger. I don't know where the idea of a flashbang on a cowboy came from, and on top of that, it doesn't make sense that a character that's so aim-reliant just has a button that says fuck you to anyone close to him. It's not even that satisfying to use because you just look in their general direction press the button, and congrats, now you've probably won the duel. Now while Flashbang may not fit in his kit, his ultimate Deadeye, despite being an auto-aim ability, certainly fulfills a thematic fantasy. While it has historically been a pretty bad ultimate, it is pretty good at zoning teams, and it can also be used for a fast reload while in a duel. Unlike a lot of other ultimates that I've talked about so far between Widowmaker, Roadhog, and Mercy, Deadeye feels really fun and really cool to use. That's not even mentioning that with the new heroes that have come out, also known as the Cat, yeah, Deadeye can be used for a pretty lethal duo with that character. His ultimate can also be buffed even further with one of your minor perk choices of Even the Odds, which just makes you way harder to kill during Deadeye, and if you're in the sky with the Cat, you shouldn't be killable unless you just happen to get Widow headshot or Castleton back. That being said, I know when I've played Cassidy, I typically take the other minor perk because of how strong Bang Bang is. Splitting up into two different flashbangs, for one, means that you can have an increased crowd control duration because they can hit one after another, and on top of that, the damage goes up to 230, which hits a 225 HP breakpoint. This is assuming that you hit both flashbangs and either a headshot or two body shots, which isn't that difficult to do because they're going to be hindered for an increased time, probably around 1.5 seconds instead of the usual 1.2. While I do think there is a clear winner when it comes to the minor perks, his major perks are both pretty good, both thematically and power-wise. His new major perk, Rollin' Roundups, provides him with self-sustain that can really only be accessed while in duels. This perk also enhances what he's already good at, which is being good into dive, and the increased sustain really helps him with that. That being said, his other major perk is the ever-popular Silver Bullet, which replaces Fan the Hammer with an ability that's on an 8-second cooldown, but in exchange, you get bleed damage that has no fall-off. It's also worth noting that both his roll and his ult instantly end the cooldown of the ability. And given that this major perk provides him with an actual long-distance poke tool, it makes him better into the characters that he would normally struggle into, which are longer-ranged characters. So while his kit does for the most part feed into the fantasy of a cowboy gunslinger, and one of his abilities happens to make him really good into dive, how well does this actually execute on the gameplay front? Well, like other non-mobile hitscan, he typically plays with his team and tries to hold angles and shoot people from afar. As mentioned earlier, his only weakness is his range, and most fights don't happen at those ranges with the exception of real long-range characters on long-range maps like Havana, Junkertown, etc. Most duels with Cassidy comes down to, does he land his shots? And the higher rank you are, the more likely that answer is to be yes. However, because of his flashbang, he's also able to just flashbang you, headshot you, melee you, and you're just dead even from 250 HP. And given that he's a gunslinger, it makes sense that most of his gameplay would be him just shooting you. So why does he have an ability that's so easy to hit and use that just says, nope, I won the duel now? One issue with this current Hinder version of Flashbang that actually didn't exist with the stun version is the fact that Flashbang is now almost entirely reactive. The stun version of Flashbang was disgusting, and I'm not saying it should be brought back, but it could at least start a fight up, whereas the Hinder version is just used while already in one. Due to his effective range being on the shorter end, Cass is usually played with either brawl comps or with a sturdy backline in order to dissuade dives. And again, the main way that people see to dissuade dive is by having an ability that stops them when they're on top of you, not by actually counterplaying the dive in the first place. Cassidy is seen as a solution character. If an enemy is running a mobile character that your team is struggling into, one of your DPS should pick Cassidy to stop that enemy. I'd actually argue that Brig, in her current state anyway, while also being a counter-dive character, is a much more fair and skillful version of an anti-dive hero than Cassidy is. However, before I tear into Cassidy too much, I should go over the positive aspects that Cassidy brings to the game. One of which is that it is nice for DPS players to have a character that helps slow the game down. It's great to have someone slow the pace down when being played into Tracer, Vendetta, Ball, Lucio, etc. Especially given the recent uptick in high mobility characters, it's good that there are characters that can help slow the pace of the game right back down. However, I do think that the main positive thing that Cassidy brings to the table is just how popular of a character the cowboy gunslinger fantasy is. It doesn't matter how good or strong he is, doesn't matter if he's terrible, he has consistently held around a 20-ish% pick rate. It's also just that he's fun to play because of how good his gun feels to use. It's perfectly accurate, there's no real recoil to it, and it does solid and very impactful damage in his range. The only real downside to it is the reload time, which is about half the time it takes for him to empty his ammo while using the primary fire. Now it's time to go back into tearing into him. The negative aspects that he brings to the game is, first off, Flashbang is a disgusting ability on Cass's kit that doesn't feel satisfying to land, nor fill any part of a thematic fantasy on him. It feels like it's an ability that's shoehorned in because a flashbang should exist in a shooter, but then it's not even a normal flashbang, it's just used to be a stun, now it's a hinder. They can't really figure out what they want to do with the ability, and it doesn't really even fit on Cassidy's kit in the first place. Funnily enough, if it was an ability on a more mobile character's kit, with reduced damage let's say, it could be used proactively in order to deny people from getting away from you, or to peel for teammates. At best, Flashbang just makes it kind of nice to have slightly easier shots, while it also makes the person hit by it feel miserable. Now, the next negative aspect is going to sound a little scrubbish, so excuse me for this, but high burst damage that is aim reliant isn't always fair, and the best examples of this are Widowmaker and Roadhog. Both Roadhog and Widow are incredibly reliant on landing either a headshot or one ability in order to land their burst. This doesn't make them fair though. Cass, while he doesn't have the exact same burst, does fall kind of close because the only compensation for his easy to access burst damage is his range, which only really hurts him against opposing hitscan or poke characters like Hanzo. Ashe, in order to land her 2-tap headshot, needs to ADS, which isn't really great up close. It's still viable and it's still possible, just not as easy as Cass is. Sojourn, while yes, she's able to charge up her rail very quickly, does have to have the rail charged in order to burst you down quickly. By comparison, all Cass has to do is have at least 2 ammo in his chamber, and then click on your head twice. Am I making this sound easy? Yes. Do some people make it look easy? Absolutely. And again, given that the only downside to his burst is his range, both tanks and flankers have to constantly deal with him at his most effective range. Tanks have no choice outside of Dominant Sigma but to fight him in his best range. Flankers have the exact same problem and get bursted down even faster with Flashbang. Really, if I had to boil down the 2 negative aspects of Cassidy, it is: should Hinder be kept, / is Flashbang as a tool healthy for Overwatch? And does he deserve to have the burst damage he does with the range he has? Let's actually start with that second question. Does he deserve to have the burst he does as consistently as he does? And let's for a moment imagine a different version of Cassidy. This version of Cassidy should still keep him as a powerful pick against mobile characters, but reduces the frustration of playing into him for the rest of the cast. This will not remove Hinder, but it will weaken it. The first change being made is, in order to make him a sort of tanky hit scan again, he's going to have his health bumped up from 250 to 275. Additionally, Hinder will have its duration reduced to, let's just say, 0.9 seconds, just to reduce frustration with that ability. This is primarily impactful against tanks, but it will affect flankers as well. The main reason for not touching the damage of this ability is because his gun is going to get changed. His primary fire will have its damage reduced from 70 to 62, but the fire rate will increase from 0.5 shots per second to 0.42 shots per second. In case you're wondering how the math works out, the DPS actually goes up from 140 to about 148 damage per second. Additionally, this maintains the 225 HP breakpoint for 2 headshots, but it disrupts the 250 HP breakpoint. And with the reduction of the burst damage, the range falloff can be kept at its range, or even expanded on the back end from 25 to 35 meters to 25 to 40 meters. It's also worth noting that with the increased fire rate, Cassidy will still be able to get 2 shots off even with the shortened Hinder duration. Additionally, it might be necessary to reduce his reload time because he's just going to have to reload more frequently, so reducing his reload time from 1.5 to 1.25 seconds would be a good change alongside these fire rate changes. The main result of these changes is a Cassidy that is harder to burst, and a Cassidy that can't burst you down as easily either. He just has to land a few more shots and has more opportunities to do so. It's also worth noting that by keeping his damage at 62, the 225 HP breakpoint is more impactful against more mobile characters. And as for Tracer, while yes, you can unfortunately no longer just headshot plus melee, you do have a faster fire rate, you still have Hinder, and you have more health, so it shouldn't be that bad. At least, in my opinion, I don't think it would be that bad. Now then, while I think these changes could be debated, and I'd be fine with them being implemented or not, what I would like to see is a replacement to Hinder, because I am a firm believer that Flashbang should just not exist on Cassidy's kit at least. So in that case, what ideas am I going to bring to the table in order to replace Hinder? Well, obviously, he is a cowboy, so the first thing that I thought of was some sort of lasso. This lasso ability could have a similar range to Hog, around 20 meters, with a similar hitbox and cast time. Not deal that much damage, let's say it does 40-ish damage, and it can be a short pull that hinders for around 1 second for non-tanks and around half a second for tanks. The main change this would make is, first off, tanks wouldn't be affected by the CC for as long, and it would make his hinder a skill shot, which, considering everything about him is the sharpshooter gunslinger fantasy, yeah, his abilities should be about his aim. However, to account for the fact that it isn't AoE and that it is a skill shot, I do think that this should be on a shorter cooldown, let's just say around 8 seconds, since with around an 8-second cooldown, you should be able to both look for fights proactively, or you can save it for when you need it in a duel. An alternative way for the lasso to work is a tether that stays connected and hinders the enemy hit for the duration. This duration could be significantly longer, and during this time, the distance between Cassidy and the lasso target cannot increase. If anyone has ever played Guilty Gear, this tether would act similarly to Biken's tether. Basically, if the targets walk backwards, then they'll get pulled in closer to Cassidy. If Cassidy melees, he can end this ability immediately, and meleeing as the enemy can shorten the duration by percentage or whatever, but that's at the cost of not shooting back against the Cassidy. Another idea I had for a sharpshooter is, well, this pulls from Ultra Kill. This ability has you toss a coin into the air that if you shoot it, it will auto-target enemies within its radius. Fan the Hammer will automatically target the coin as long as it's within view, but it will deal reduced damage. The coin would probably stay in the air for about 2-ish seconds in order to allow you to get a couple of shots off, or a Fan the Hammer plus the reload animation, but if you roll, then you can cancel that and immediately go back to bursting. Or, alternatively, since grenades are on his person, you can keep the grenade, just remove the crowd control aspect. Maybe they can throw in a similarity to Ash, where he can shoot the grenade in order to have it explode instantly, though in his case, it would be increased burst damage, not just the dynamite explodes instantly. As some potential perk replacements, maybe he can get an enhanced melee, where his melee either marks a target and makes them get auto-targeted by the next shot, somewhat replicating the magnetic theme he had early in Overwatch 2, or on a cooldown his melee can hinder enemies for a very brief period of time and deal increased damage. So overall, how would I change Cassidy? I'd either leave him as is, just remove Flashbang and replace it with the initial lasso idea I mentioned, or I'd take the burst damage redesign to make him tankier and deal less damage, and again replace Flashbang with the initial lasso idea. While it is good that there are characters that have positive matchups against certain playstyles, they shouldn't completely shut off the enemy's ability to play those characters. Cassidy's current design isn't insanely good at countering mobile heroes, Flashbang is just incredibly annoying to play into and not satisfying to use. This is why I'm so focused on Flashbang as an ability, because I think that the heart of his problem is the fact that he is viewed as a solution to dive because of one ability. The best way to counter a dive in Overwatch is to prevent them from setting up in the first place, and Cassidy still has the ability to do just that. He just also has an ability that says, no, you don't get to move anymore. I would love it if Cassidy was viewed as a solution to dive not because of one ability, but because you can land the shots needed to prevent them from setting up, and then once they rush at you, you have the health and damage to fight them off. That being said, when it comes to the number changes, I know that I am just a fan of lowering burst in favor of consistent damage output, but that is a personal preference that I have that not everyone else has. Regardless of your opinion on my ideas, I hope that this was a good thought experiment about game design, character design on Cassidy Overwatch. and how I have the issues I have with him, and how I came up with my solutions to those issues. The main goal of these videos isn't for me to just hate on a character, it is for me to come up with ideas that I think would keep them fun for those that play them, while changing them for the better. For all of you, I hope it's a good time to just think about a character and think about what makes them strong, what weaknesses they have, what makes them fun, what makes them frustrating, and how they can be changed to be more fun for those that play them, and less frustrating for those that play against them. My ideas certainly aren't perfect, they're just what I have come up with, so if any of you have any ideas, leave them down in the comments below, and please try to be civil about it. It's more than okay to be critical of others' ideas, just make sure that you've put some thought into it first. That being said, I hope you all have enjoyed this video, and that you all have a great day, and I'll see you all in the next one.